Hello everybody, my name is Godwin Josiah, director for the project Timothee. Today I'm going to be actually taking you through a step-by-step process. It's an honor to actually be giving my commentary on how this project came to light. Particularly, I'm trying to make this as unrobotic as possible, so I'm trying to actually explain the legit process we had to go through making this masterpiece. So follow me on this wonderful journey, and I hope you find this interesting, because literally that's all that matters. So I'm going to hop right into it, and yeah, this is my commentary for Timothee, the project. Thank you. Okay, our opening sequence. We rarely use this, but like we try to use it for like projects we believe kind of like deserve it. But anyways, it's really cool seeing this happen. So yeah, a warning sign. We thought this was actually going to be quite funny. It appears it was, and you have this beginning shot where you have like a spaceship going through Earth, and obviously this character is being dropped down. So before we continue, a quick breakdown of that is like this beginning shot is supposed to kind of like establish something, which is of course very confusing to the people who see it first, like what the hell is going on. A quick kind of like a quick spoiler is for the fact that this was not kind of like the original scene, the original beginning scene we had in mind. It was the scene that comes actually later, but we shot this a few days before we actually put the project out, and it's quite funny because it seems like an idea that has been there from the start, but it literally was not here. Raymond just told me about this particular idea I had for like the beginning, and I was like, this is actually, it makes sense because it's like the missing piece we've actually been looking for. And so we went out to shoot this. So literally what happens here is we see a spaceship going through the universe and finally arriving in, obviously you can boldly see the Africa, you can see Africa on, Earth. It's arriving in Africa, and it drops this particular alien looking beam in this, unknown location. And so when you closely look at what actually happened there, you actually see for a fact that the eyes were kind of like glowing blue, and he had some kind of like a symbol right on, above his nose a bit, on his forehead, almost on his forehead. So what that kind of signified was for the fact that this guy probably has lost or has lost he has changed from this being to like something that seems normal to some extent. He is no longer that particular thing. It's quite a very important detail, because as the film flows, as the film progresses, you get to see that he gets to kind of like adapt in this normal form. And so yeah, Timothee title card. So it's Timothee just kind of like chilling out on a tree. Kind of like how this turned out. So basically, we arrived at this location with nothing in mind. Minds were like clear as crystal, but I actually sighted this tree, and I thought it was kind of like centralized in some way, because in the wide shot, like you can see, you have this grasses all over the tree, and it's a tree. It's literally on its own, right? The location had tree around, but this particular one was on its own, and it's so far the most climbable that we had around at that particular moment. And so it was kind of interesting that he climbed this particular tree, and so it was like we just set up and we shot this first scene. And a quick info also is for the fact that the sound we got for this scene was not working. Part of it was not really working. It actually did record sound, but it was not really working, and so we had to like re-record the sounds all over again while editing was going on. So if you look closely, the sound coming from the wide shot, which gives you the feeling that okay, he's actually talking, but he's really not talking. but it was really interesting seeing how this scene came to light. So he's writing on his to-do list. This list is quite important to him because it helps him keep track and, you know what he's supposed to do when he's supposed to do it. Yeah, that is it. This is actually my favorite shot in this particular sequence, the one that gets to show the tree. Like I said earlier, it's literally the most climbable tree you can actually see in this particular picture, and it's very, very, very different from the other trees there, right? It's like standing on its own, and then you have the breeze blowing this beautiful dry grasses all around, and he's just walking towards the center of the camera. It's actually just beautiful. So we have the second scene that shows this new version of Timothee. And so quite a lot of people might be confused on what is happening here. A quick explanation is just that Timothee right now is sitting, kind of like waiting for his victim. His victim in what sense? If you cut back to the first scene, we have a scene where he's actually writing what he wants to do for the day, right? He wants to rob someone so he can take Lolade out. And now he's actually waiting for who this victim is going to be. And luckily enough, we get to see a blue car that pass and like parks somewhere. He cites that, okay, that's a potential victim he can actually, play his pranks on. And at the end of the day, achieve what he has written in his to-do list in some kind of way. And yeah, he's actually crossing over, approaching the car. I actually like this. I like how Ridwan actually portrayed this character, even though we actually did all the explanation in the spot. I just told him what he was supposed to do, and he actually killed it. We did this takes I think three, 4 times, and the reasons were probably because of some continuity issues, and also we had to like reposition the camera in some sort of way. But I really enjoyed shooting this scene because the actor knew what he was supposed to do, even without me actually saying much. And there was particular tension actually shooting this because we were like in the road. You get to see what I mean later on, but like we're literally in the middle of the road and we had cars passing around, and we didn't have anybody controlling the cars because literally everybody was doing something on set. But I particularly love how this scene turned out, or played out. So and so now they're actually getting into like an argument. So the quick shots you can actually see, probably some people missed, but I don't think that's a shot you get to miss. You see Timothy dip his hand into like the pocket, which means this whole scene he had created is like literally a distraction for that one purpose, which is like steal the money from this particular guy, this working class looking fellow, which was played by Ridwan. And this scene was funny for a fact because we were on the go shooting easy, right? There was no plan on how this was going to go. It was more like, okay, we've done this, I think let's do this next. And I was actually kind of privileged to be behind the camera or with the camera to shoot this project, this particular scene, because Ronald actually was preparing to actually go into his role. Ronald, which is like the cinematographer. So yeah, let's see. So he's confused literally, and boom, we reveal he's happy because he literally is like mission accomplished. He has everything, and boom, this is one shot I think flied over every single person's head because nobody has actually questioned what this particular shot meant till this day. But it's one that shows his to-do list, which is like the list we got to see like in the very the second scene of the film, the list where he writes his things down. So that list actually fell to the ground, but he did not notice. You know, when he jumps over to the other side of the street, the list falls down to the ground, but he didn't actually get to notice, of course. And we have a shot that focuses on the book, on the to-do list, right? And you know, cuts back to focusing on him. It's like a very intricate shot for the film. But I do hope a lot of people get to actually notice that, because I was even scared while we were shooting this particular scene that I was going to fly past a lot of people. It's just going to look like this one cool down shot that just shows Timothee going away. But I hope someone out there gets it, because like that's the purpose of making it or putting it out there. So let's continue. This scene was rather funny, because I had no idea who the casted who was casted to play these two roles, or the actors that were going to be playing these two roles. We were just going on set to see how, you know, things were eventually going to play out. And I was privileged to actually work with Paulina, who is like the lover guy. We call him lover guy. And Deborah, which is like a very close friend of ours, she plays lover girl. And both of them are actually supposed to play kind of like lovers in this particular scene, and they were supposed to improvise. It was kind of like it was just those moments in filmmaking where it was just this awkward moment where they had to say things. They had to say things you would not normally hear people say, like in public, especially when the cinematographer had headphones on and he could hear every single thing the guy was was kind of like telling her. I think he was shy, but we can actually see how much he went deep into this role. So I actually have respect for how much he was able to kind of control this role. And even her, the lover girl, you can actually see there's this sort of intimacy, even though I don't know if it was the first time they met. I think they are like quite familiar with each other, but there was this kind of intimacy, like they were actually lovers to some extent. You could actually feel it. It was one funny scene to actually shoot. I can remember Ronald was actually laughing because he couldn't bear hearing what the guy was actually saying. So we shot this scene quite a couple of times because we had to get them to stand like at the particular right position for the continuity for a shot you are going to see really soon. So yeah. So Timothy is actually walking through the other side of the road, and as you can see, he notices lover boy and lover girl, and it's kind of like sad. So also cutting back to the second scene, right, you see that particular scene is kind of like referencing a lot of things we get to see as the movie progresses. So Timothy here stops. It gives us the sense of what this particular stop, this particular pause he makes actually kind of like interprets heartbreak in some kind of way, because we see his mood change. He was actually happy in the last scene we saw him, and all of a sudden now he's kind of like, you know, kind of like down, just like that. Gives us the sense that this girl is Lolade, who, the girl he was actually talking about. Like in the second scene, we get to see this new version of Timothy. In the first scene, we get to see the new version of Timothy, and this is Lolade, and Timothy is kind of like heartbroken because he's seen Lolade with somebody else. It's kind of like a very hard moment for him to like take in, but let's see how he actually goes into taking this. So yeah, he's kind of like trying to hold himself back, but he says, you know, fuck it. So that punch was supposed to be real, right? I actually tried a couple of real punches, but the guy okay, so picture this with me. Imagine getting an actor on set, an actor that volunteers, right, to actually do a very awkward scene, which is like pretend to be a lover boy, and then later on you have to tell the actor that he's going to be getting he's going to be getting punched in the mouth, and you want it to be real, right? It's a very, very awkward situation you don't not want to find yourself in. But you can actually see it looked so real, because what we did was we tried lots of methods, and we tried quite a lot of things to actually make this scene come to life. And somehow the shot I actually did not expect was going to kind of worked out for this particular scene. It came out really, really beautiful well. But disclaimer is that he was not actually punched for this scene, but you can actually see it felt so, so real. And I mean, his action here is very justifiable. We all do not want to feel heartbroken to some extent. We all have somebody we have seen with somebody else, and we feel like, oh, I should shoot this. I should actually go punch this other guy because you like this other person in some sort of way. So like, it's Timothy being, it's Timothy being kind of like human in some kind of way, and he's obviously expressing pain. Yeah, so this is a change in emotion compared to like how we get to see Timothy in this particular form, compared to how we saw Timothy at on top of the tree. He was quite happy, he was quite hyped, and he was quite joyous. That's like the kind of like emotional graph of like that scene. And all of a sudden here we have like him going really, really down. He's kind of like sad, he's hurt, and he's angry at the same time. And he just punched the guy just like that for no freaking reason, because of course the guy is hanging out with a girl he likes. So I think this guy, you can literally call Timothy a creep in some sort of way. So let's continue and see. Yeah, she asks, "Are you okay?" Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, so to explain this scene, of course, very, very evident that this scene happens right after he just punched this guy. And I was like on a public transport, I think a day or 2 days before this scene was shot. And I kind of was passing this particular place, and I saw for a fact that this place might actually be kind of like perfect to show a kind of continuation from like where the last scene actually stopped, because this is like where people walk, but I don't see a lot of people walking past there. And obviously the water that you see like down below, the scenery that you get to have from this place, it's like separating two different versions of life in some kind of way. You have nature, and then you have just kind of cars moving around. This particular picture you can see here is like a very, very good example depicting like what I mean by this. Timothy is kind of like in the middle of everything, and he's just walking depressed, sad, and angry. And he's like walking somewhere we have no idea where he's walking to. But this happens right after he punched Lola Day's assumed boyfriend. So let's see. Drops his stick, right? Okay, so now this is also a very important scene. So there are two scenes that connect. There's one particular scene that connects with the scene we just saw, or the action we just saw Timothy give now, which is he realizes something is missing, right? But not a lot of people will actually understand this, because immediately they do not. For a fact that if you missed the particular shot that showed his kind of to-do list missing, you definitely will not understand why he's searching for something. So what he's searching for is the to-do list, right? He's actually checking. He gets to this kind of sudden realization that, oh God, where's my book, right? And it's like he's searching for it. So that's the action that just happened. So people that got to like miss the notebook, the to-do list part, which is that shot that cuts focus from like the book to like Timothy itself, will definitely not understand what just happened there. So like both scenes are actually kind of connected. And what we get to see now is kind of like Timothy wandering back through the road he followed, which kind of, wow, a lot is happening in this scene. So Timothy, right, is kind of like tracing back his steps in some sort of way to go find the to-do list that like he has missed. Of course, that road leads back to where he committed the atrocity, which is where he stole from the other man, and now he's going through that road to find the book or the to-do list, like I said. And now his head's down, he's walking past the road, and now this road connects him back to where he was sitting at first, right? And then while we cut back there, we get to hear this voice, right? It's the man he stole from, which was played by Ridwan. And now Ridwan is complaining to a couple of guys who will explain who they are as the film progresses. He's complaining to a couple of guys, and when we listen closely, Ridwan is actually telling these guys that, okay, this guy is literally a madman, right? He came here, just grabbed me for no reason. I do not know what I did to him, and now he literally took something from me in some sort of way. And then while complaining, he sights Timothy from afar. Timothy does not sight him first, which is like the scene that gets to happen here. Timothy does not get to sight, you know, Ridwan's character, and Ridwan does not get to sight Timothy at first, but in the process of complaining, he gets to sight Timothy. And then he shouts and directs his, you know, his gaze at Timothy and say, that's him, that's the guy that stole from me, that's the madman, go after him in some sort of way. And we have these two strange guys kind of like pursuing Timothy in this particular scene. So yeah, let's see what happened. The beautiful chasing. So this particular part of the chase scene obviously cut from like where the chase begins, and some sort of way it feels like same road, but it's actually different roads. This one also happened the same way. We're supposed to shoot the lover scene, I think, this day, but I had an idea of like scouting this particular area because I've seen it once and I can't remember what it looked like. But I thought if the chase scene continued from this particular, you know, place, it was going to kind of like fit in with where we were shooting last, because it had this kind of like you can obviously see how the roads bend, so it feels like immediately they take that particular corner, they were going to be appearing through here. And how we shot this was Ronald, which is like the guy right behind Raymond, right? And we have Usman, who is like the second guy chasing Raymond. They are behind him. Raymond is right in front. And what we did was I was at the back of the back of a car with the camera, and you can see how smooth this particular shot is because like I was literally sitting on the camera and it was literally just me going backwards with the car and them kind of trying to catch up some sort of way. And I actually like how the scene turned out, even though you could see some smoke on that from the car exhaust, but it's quite a beautiful shot. Drops his bag, and then more scenes of him running. So a quick explanation of who these guys probably are, because I know a lot of people might be confused while watching this, like where did these two white guys, these two guys with like white t-shirts and black trousers all of a sudden come from. So these two guys actually work at, you know, a psychiatric hospital. They kind of like, they are the guys you call when you think you've seen a madman on the streets, right? They come to do the clearing, they come to do the kind of like, they come to do the pickup. They are like police, but for kind of like mentally challenged people. And so obviously Ridwan character calls them up, because when we see him going to the car and comes back out, we believe he's like trying to call somebody. And so when he calls these two guys up, right, they show up, complains to them, and Timothy coincidentally comes into the scene, and now they have their guy, they have the guy they were like invited to pick up. So like they chase him, of course, and now it's their goal to actually catch this particular guy because he is, of course, they think mentally challenged. And this whole kind of like this whole kind of chase montage actually plays out where we have Timothy kind of outrunning them, but they are trying their very best to actually catch up with him. And so everything playing out here, it was really awesome kind of like shooting this particular scene, because the crazy thing is I shot this with Ronald, which is like the cinematographer for this particular project, and Ronald actually shot this, but we realized that, man, the two guys who were supposed to like be chasing him actually missing, and they are quite very like important for this shot to actually have that feel, because we're trying to make up for it that, okay, probably he outruns them and it goes to this point where like it's just him, but it was not matching at some point in the edit. And so we went out for a second time to go shoot with these two guys, and in order for the casting to not seem off, right, I was sleeping and I had a dream that Ronald actually has to play this particular character because he's extremely tall to some extent, and the person that's like tall or closest to him, that's that tall, was actually Usman. Usman is a friend of ours, and they were actually quite perfect because they were almost the same height, and we just found some couple of costumes and they wore it, and when we went to shoot at this particular location for a second time, and I actually had to handle the camera for Ronald. But while I was handling it, of course, he was kind of like giving me inputs on how the last shot he shot could actually continue, and we could actually blend both footages we have taken like in different days. And so when you watch this particular shot, you are not going to realize that some of the shots were gotten after some were like gotten to some extent, if you understand what I mean. They were shot on different days, but like you might not get to actually notice it. So most shots that have Timothee alone were shot like on a different day, and most shots that had Timothee and the guys were also shot on a different day. But like that's what happens in this particular scenery. So Timothee running, this was shot on the first day. Second day together, which is obvious second day. So that was Ronald that fell right there. I don't know why this guy likes to fall. Like this guy falls for fun. I can actually recall quite a lot of projects where this guy just like goes down to the ground and falls. Like I was really impressed. Okay. Usman was actually originally supposed to fall, but Usman was doing anything. It was not doing anything that looked like a fall at all. I think it was probably because of his shoe, and then Ronald volunteered to actually fall, and then he had this kind of roll that was like boom boom all over the place, and I was like, oh my god, I was almost not going to get this on camera. I was going to waste, but like thank god we actually got it. So like this shows how much or how fast Timothee is. He's actually outrunning them to an extent. One of the guys actually fell down to the ground and stuff. Timothy is like way ahead, and this is Usman trying to get his guy back up. Like, yeah, we can do this. Another favorite scene. So this dust was just lying around in the middle of the road where we went to shoot this, and not a lot of people might notice, but the tree where we shot at the first scene, the second scene rather, with the new Timothee, is just right by the side, right? But this feels like a whole different location, and this dust was just there, and we're like, okay, how about you just run through the dust? I think it's going to be really cinematic. We see the dust, you know, going all up and stuff, so you just make it feel like you like you fell down to the ground. And we did just that. We did that twice. We did that for the first day, then we came back to do that for the second day. Reason because for the first shot, right, the guys were not behind him and it felt a little bit off, but that was a very, very beautiful shot. So for the second day, we had to do this particular dust running through scene again because we had the guys now, which is like Ronald and Usman, and so they were right behind him running, and this guy was actually like kind of like falling through the dust. It was kind of like a very beautiful scene to shoot. We had to got behind. We got two angles, one camera, and kind of like blended both in some kind of way. Yeah, the running continues. Boom. Yeah, this is another detail that might go past like a lot of people's head, but like he's trying to like go over. So this is not fake. This is actually real. But I'm not going to speak on this because we might get arrested. This is actually restricted area I went to shoot this particular scene, but one particular detail you might miss is the mines ahead sign that's like way over here, and so they're jumping over all three of them because now things like she just got real. We cannot have like pursued this guy so far and just like abandon everything. So now it's like a goal for them to catch Timothee, right? And Timothee does not want to get caught to some extent. So man, same location, boom, boom. So this is a very intense scene because all of a sudden everything is exploding. So it's like that what is happening moment for like literally everybody that gets to watch it. So what literally happened here is, like I said, from what I stated earlier, is for fact that they just went into a minefield, right? They literally just hopped on the minefield, and none of them actually took time to read the sign. But of course, who gets to read, you know, the signs where they're like, there's a chase happening, but like they hopped on the minefield, and Usman is the first guy that got blown away, and then of course Raymond's leg got blown away, like you can obviously see here. It's a very beautiful scene to shoot. It was not easy shooting it at all. We had to do lots of takes, and the crazy thing about this scene here, it's like I wondered how we were going to pull that particular scene off, because we definitely were not going to risk jumping over the fence, because like I said, it was an extra restricted area. And then the idea of, okay, let's just do this from like a very, very wide perspective and just give them the feeling that they did jump over while we're still using that particular, you know, front. But like this time they're just running towards the camera and it feels like they jumped over. And so that was literally what we did. We never jumped over this place. Disclaimer, we never jumped over this place. We did not break any law. We did not break any rule. So that was how we shot this particular scene. And yeah, one thing you notice is the blue blood. Obviously, like I said, the first scene complements this, which is why I'm like very, very happy we got to shoot that. Everything we got to shoot. This first scene, this particular scene, anybody that got to see the first scene might not really be very, very confused on what's happening here. It shows that Timothee is obviously an alien, blue blood, obviously an alien. So like that's what is happening here. And let's just see what plays out next. Flashback. He's in pain, obvious pain. Flashback. Ronald. Oh God. Right before we watch this, one of the ideas that was very clear from like the very, very beginning of, you know, kind of like when the story came to light, was the mine explosion, and particularly his leg getting blown off. That was one cool thing that was obviously supposed to be done for this shot, even though to some extent we had not kind of balanced what causes it and how we might probably balance that at the end of the day. This particular stuff was one thing that was clear. It was literally the highlight of like everything else. And I think to some extent we did pull this particular stuff off well. You can see how gruesome and how kind of like painful. Yeah, it's visually painful to actually even look at, and the blue blood everywhere. It's just it's crazy. It's crazy. And so this particular scene we're about to see is one that references back to like the very first scene we see in the film, which is the alien coming down to Earth. This particular character we see like on our screen now is his brother. Obviously, I'm going to explain when this guy comes up again, but this is his brother that I got to play because we were like literally out of actors. So I got to play this particular character, and this is his brother. We can see kind of like explosions all around this particular scene, and the brother is like looking back at something. Now this is the reveal. He's actually looking back at Timothy and he's shouting, "Forget." Now you get to see the spaceship over Timothy, right? So look at that POV from the perspective of, oh, that's Timothy looking at his brother, and now that's Timothy looking at the spaceship. So another thing is, every single flashback scene was shot days before we released this particular film, which is really crazy. I don't know how the idea came into Ramon's head, but he literally told me, I was like, yo, I think this makes sense. And we found a way to actually balance how that might play out. And literally, it's what saved this film to some extent, because if you get to watch the first version of this, you might be confused, and probably the only thing you get to compensate yourself with is for the fact that we might just have something going in there, but I don't think a lot of people might have understood what was going on. But this flashbacks actually helped out quite a lot. So what we see here is him being rushed. You can hear the voiceover in the background, and it's like a cut between flashback and reality, right? Reality, the dust all over his face. Flashback, he has his symbol on his face, and it's crazy. And this particular scene is another scene. Like I said, the VFX scene for this project was literally visualized before even the story was balanced. This scene was one that was obviously going to be pulled off. It was awesome shooting this, even though it was literally just in our room with a couple of lights. So Timothy is going under an MRI scan. And this is the confusing thing. MRI scans are supposed to scan you to see what the problem is, like what you might have broken or what is inside you or something like that. But this is a guy that has literally been healed and is going through a scan again. Sorry, he has been bandaged and he's going through a scan again. So it's probably not the right thing the medical personnel would literally do. But you know, it's a really cool scene that we get to see this guy just go through this particular scan. Everything here is kind of like CGI, except the guy, of course. Now he's going into the MRI scan. Yeah, going through it. So this scene that's literally playing now is kind of like really very, very, very important, because we get to see a new version of Timothy in some sort of sense, right? Like I said at the very beginning, I categorize him as a happy Timothy, which is like this new version we get to see is a happy Timothy. The second version of Timothy we got to see was Timothy being angry at the fact that the girl he loves is actually in love with somebody else. And now this third version we are getting exposed to is kind of like a Timothy that has kind of lost hope in some sense, right? This guy is breaking down, right? All of a sudden he's breaking down for obvious reasons, because like a few hours or few days ago he's like all good, and now with all that's like happened to him, we see him embracing this kind of human, this human part of him, and he's like literally just crying his eyes out inside you know, the psychiatric hospital, and this is him breaking down. So that guy that just passed with somebody on the wheelchair is also me, and that was Richard, and this is Ronald also. So we literally literally with the cast and crew at once. Was crazy. Calls him. So when Raymond was telling me about this scene where he wants like his hair to like be barbed or cut off, the first thing I remembered was a scene where something similar was happening to Natalie Portman, and she was crying like relentlessly. I think she's like the goddess of cry, if that makes any sense. She was crying her eyes out, and he actually said that scene inspired this particular picture we are seeing here. I think we're able to do justice to it to some extent, because you can see him go through this kind of like traumatic moment of like, it feels like it's the hair, but it also feels like it's more than just the hair at the same time, right? Because he's breaking down to a point where we get to question why he's actually even breaking down. Like he gets to show us this particular part of him that we did not get to experience in literally the first half. We're literally still in the half of the movie, but we didn't get to see. And all of a sudden we see this guy going really, really emotional, and this scene was kind of like a delight. I must really commend how easy it was working with Raymond on this, because he literally had walked towards becoming this guy himself, and this was a very emotional scene. So I'll just let this play out. We shot this on one take, 2 cameras. One camera was on a tripod, and Ronald was actually with a second camera, which is like the close-up you get to see here. Usman was actually cutting his hair. Usman actually had double roles in this. Flashback. I don't think I can ever get over how emotional this scene actually turned out to be. So this particular scene, This particular scene obviously explains itself. It's Raymond sitting all alone, kind of broken. That's the word to use, broken. Like, he's broken to an extent he doesn't really have any emotion to actually show anymore, right? He's at the spot where he's just accepting everything and kind of just, you know, just existing, right? No happiness, doesn't show much sadness. It's just him, right, being Timothy. And we have us, I mean literally us, playing other psychiatric patients. By the left, you have Ronald and Usman, who literally were the guys that played the chase scene. And by the right, we had Ridwan and Richard. Ridwan was the guy who was like in his car, and Richard was this is Richard's only role in this film. So we literally had to play these characters ourselves. Although that was not the original vision for this particular scene, it was supposed to be a scene where you had lots of people kind of like singing praises, you know, spiritual stuff. But we had to work with what we had at the end of the day, and I can proudly say this was beautiful. What we got at the end of the day was really beautiful. It's literally how we do what we do. We try to look for we just try to make it work, you know. We just try to make it work. I remember we actually went round the area looking for a way to make this particular scene come to light, but like it was not really possible because the places we were going to really did not match what we were going for. So we settled for like our house, which is like here, lit the whole place up and just wore whites, and you know, shot this particular scene. And he's staring directly at the camera. I don't know, there's something this particular stare does, right? It's like a moment where you as an audience or viewer kind of like share moments with the actor himself, right? He's looking directly at you, and it's like you get to feel what, you know, he's feeling at that particular moment. And so it was kind of important. There were lots of like hot takes shooting this scene because it was quite a funny scene to shoot, but like this piece was literally beautiful, and the music complemented it at the end of the day. And this is just Broken Timothy. So one detail that obviously might be missed on the way is this particular guy's eye. This is Ronald, of course, but this is the first time we actually got to show Ronald without his marks or anything. So his eyes are gray. This particular information is one that might have like literally gone past a lot of people's head. We shot this at night, literally. He comes to tell Timothy that, okay, someone is here for you. We know Timothy has probably, or the perception we've had that Timothy is like, he literally does not have anybody because it seems so far he's like on his own. So who is this someone? It gives us this kind of feeling that, okay, there's something about to happen here. And then we just so memento is remember in Latin. This character is me. I got to play Timothy's brother. I really just want to explain probably what happens in this scene because it's a scene I believe should not be interrupted in some sort of way. We shot this days before we released this film online. Literally, was one of those particular things you don't plan for that actually come out really well. It's one of my favorite scenes in this particular film. And after deliberating on how we probably want the scene to actually go, while on set we got to figure out how we thought it best would have actually flowed, and this was it. I tell him to remember, which complements the fact that I told him to forget, you know, at some point in the film. If you remember the flashback that I was like literally trying to explain, which is the first time you get to see my character, I told him to forget, and now I'm telling him to remember. And then you have this, you know, montage of flashes coming back, and Timothy is literally remembering who he was. And now this what plays here is like his reaction to like whatever has happened. It was you. Hello, brother. So this is Timothy in his form, like who Timothy actually is, not what we have shown Timothy to be over the years after. This is a very emotional conversation because it explains for a fact that he came down to earth against his will. His brother made him forget everything. Now he spent 20 years being what he's not. Man, I must actually take a moment to actually acknowledge how much this guy actually gave into killing this role. Raymond was really brilliant, actually kind of like acting this particular scene out, because even though there were lots and lots of outtakes shooting this, it just came out in some kind of way that I can't explain, but it's something that everybody who probably has watched this film can actually testify to. The reference back to this particular scene, because it was the bedrock of literally the emotions that you get to actually see in this particular film. He learnt Latin and kind of brought the idea of like us speaking Latin, and you thought it was going to be really cool because obviously aliens are not supposed to speak English, and balancing the language he speaking for the very first time with emotions, it's kind of like really tricky. It's even kind of tricky balancing languages, with emotions, because it comes out really funny at times, especially when you mispronounce stuff. But like this particular scene, he got to actually balance the emotion and the speaking in some sort of sense, and it feels really, really natural. And obviously, listening to him do this actually inspired me to want to kind of like put effort into kind of like the response, which also brought the idea of responding back in Latin in some kind of way, which makes it feel like, okay, these guys actually have something that connects them, right? It shows that, okay, this is not Timothy we've seen for like literally 6 to 7 minutes. So this is really a scene that took my breath away. It's one of my favorite scenes that I've had the chance to be on set to witness. So the final flashback comes in, and it's too much for Timothy to take in, so he like literally falls down to the ground. And now I'm hypnotizing him all over again. So I'm doing what I did to the guard, right? Hypnotizing the guard to tell Timothy I'm here for him. Now hypnotizing Timothy himself to kind of follow me, because he's literally behaving really stubborn at this point. Yeah, that's Timothy in my car, cruising. And this is one beautiful scene, man. Crazy thing is, I will not go really deep into this, but probably somebody else might explain how much we wanted this location to be different. While kind of like explaining the story, Raymond kind of like talked about a forest, and I could not picture a forest, because the only forest that I actually probably knew growing up was one close to my school, and going there recently, we realized that it probably could not work there because there are less trees there and stuff. And so we did not plan to use this location. What happened was, while we went out to shoot a particular scene, we just strolled down and we found this location in some sort of sense. While we're shooting, while we're shooting I've forgotten the scene we're shooting actually, but we walked down here and all of a sudden there's this forest looking location. It's a very, very, very enclosed forest, not really big. You can actually literally walk out of the forest in some sort of sense. And then we went to shoot this particular scene. If you look closely, you get to see Timothee's eyes still kind of looking grayish, which explains that he's still under my influence, of course. Anywhere I go, he's literally following me because I've hypnotized him to like do so. And this is me just walking straight ahead, looking my head up high, you know, like a boss in some sort of sense. And one thing that's also easily not observed, but it's the contrast between, I'm wearing black, he's wearing white. That's beautiful. It flew over my head at some point, even while we're shooting, but like it's something beautiful to kind of like reference back to. Where did I go? Shooting this scene was kind of funny because we had to do lots of takes. This kind of thing where the camera was like panning backwards. I had to follow the cameraman behind and kind of like just follow him till he reveals Timothee's frontal. And then obviously when the frontal gets revealed, you get to see the influence die down in some sense. The gray eye mark that like shows that I was hypnotizing him dies down is something that not a lot of people will probably notice, but like it dies down at this particular spot. And now he's kind of confused, like, where am I? You know, he's looking around, he's confused. He's suddenly in this weird location, which explains for a fact the last thing he probably might remember was like being at the hospital. I must really commend, this is one of my favorite shots. Ronald was very artistic with how he got this particular shot. Seemed like something that was really easy, but it really was not easy because down below, it's not really revealed here. Raymond has like a green material wrapped around his leg, right? And so what we're trying to do here is show that the leg was still cut off in some sort of way, but we're like trying to like get away from the VFX to some extent because you had green everywhere here and it was just easier to get away from it. Like, why go through lots of stress? And then you can see this particular shot that wants to, it's like you ducking to see, like, oh, it's the leg still cut off, but like a leaf is like covering that part off, and it's literally one of my favorite shots in this scene, and we cut it off before the reveal. A transition actually happens there between one particular tree, and oh God, mother of Jesus, this beautiful white shot. This is just outside the forest. Yeah, the spaceship we got to see at the very beginning drop Timothee off is coming back to pick him up. It's like, here I am, take me. Boom. Okay, another of my favorite, or one of my favorite scenes. We shot both scenes the same day, and both locations were like just literally opposite each other, or like quite far apart. So the sense of this particular scene is that he just got transported to a different place. This is where it gets really confusing, right? Taking us back to like what the original story was supposed to be. This place he goes to is kind of like, to make it really understandable, let me give it term an imaginative paradise to some extent. And so getting here, he kind of like can envision anything he wants to, kind of like his leg going back up, he can make it go back in. And so that was like a really confusing ending for this particular short film. And thank God for like the other things we got to add. This what plays out here, I'm going to play it right now so I don't like spoil spoil everything I'm like literally trying to explain. But what plays out here is kind of like very, very self-explanatory, because my definition, of course, everybody is supposed to have their definition. That's why we make this experimental film, is that Timothy just got back to where he left, right? This ground he is right now, this particular ground he got transported to, it's his home, right? This is his home. This is Timothy's home. This is Timothy's planet. And Timothy is up and surprised that his leg is back, right? An emotional moment. I just remember this guy hugged his leg. Yeah, that's why I said the first version was quite weird, bro. We thank God for what we have here. So at first we're on set, and Raymond goes down to actually hug his leg. I'm like, bro, what? You know, it's like everything explains itself. There was like a very weird breach around here that suddenly disappeared, but like this place was perfect, somewhat perfect to shoot this particular scene. This is Timothy's home, of course, and he's like up, surprised to be back home. That's my interpretation, of course, but that was not. You hear that Timothy. So also my interpretation is like his brother calling him, his brother shouting Timothy, right? Timothy. That's the first call, and then now we have Timothy looking around. Who just called me? Who just called my name? Who just called me? So we hear this series of voice calling him Timothy, 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 Timothy. So that was just something we recorded right here at home. And it's just us literally saying Timothy, you know, in different pitches. And that's it. Timothy is confused in some sort of sense. And so I also have a theory that I'll explain at some point. So, a lot of people probably are confused at this point, like, what just happened? Like, this is a good twist, but what just happened actually? Like, why is his hair back to some extent? Like I said, it's my joy that everybody gets to have like an interpretation of this particular scenery. But what I think happened here, and I use the word I think because it's probably my kind of like definition, is Timothy has realized his powers. Right? Timothy has finally realized his powers, which is what? Time travel. He's traveling back in time. Those voices he gets to hear kind of triggers something that makes him travel back to time, to this particular spot. And if you look closely, this is the spot where he does the robbery, right? This is the spot where he actually robs our man. Am I saying something here? So this is going back to a particular important moment of his life, one moment that actually leads to everything happening, every bad thing happening. A mixture of bad and good, but like this particular moment is a very important moment in his life in some sort of sense. But he's confused and he doesn't know what's happening. And we get the feel, right, from his emotion. Right? Timothy has gone through different emotional stages, but this particular emotion we have here, this particular face we get to see here, gives you the feel that this is the conscious Timothy. This is the Timothy who knows he's actually an alien, because the Timothy that didn't know he was an alien was smiling at this spot. But this guy is actually confused, like, what is happening? Why am I here? And he's kind of like just wondering, you know. And we get the feel that he gets to actually see the same car park. So what's going to be his next move? That is what we don't know. Literally feels his hair. This was an emotional ride. Watching this, nothing important actually, please, except the credits and everything. But this, making this, shooting this, working on this generally was kind of like a moment, a highlight for me particularly, because one thing this project had me doing was kind of like thinking more, right? Thinking more in the sense that there was no time to overthink things. Like, we had to get what we had to get, and even though we were getting so much at the time, it got really easy, right? It got really easy getting so much. It was not really easy at some point. I think the perception of filmmaking is the higher you get at this point, the more organized everything has to feel. It was really hard getting anything organized in this particular project. We did not really have a script. I must commend the actors for going all in. I'm a huge fan of improvising, but to improvise such, you need to actually put yourself in the state, right? These are not just easy acts you pull off. These are not just steal from this guy and run away. These are have a conversation with this guy, make the people feel like you just stole from this guy, give us the facial reactions that make it feel like you just stole from this guy. And I'm telling this other actor to actually give me what he feels he's going to do in this particular situation. These are things people need to practice for. And that is why I'm very, very grateful for the fact that I got to work with actors that could actually deliver for this, because one thing I've actually understood over the years is it all begins from these guys, right? There's a long chain, there's a long line, or like it's collaborative art, that's for matter of fact, but like there's a chain, right? There's a vision that comes to light, and then you have to give this vision to the actors who are like second in charge to actually bring this vision to light, right? Now, is these particular actors are not hell-bent in bringing these visions to life, it's definitely not going to come to life. So we owe it to the actors to give us their very best in making sure this comes to life. And so I will personally salute the actors in bringing this particular stuff to life. It was not easy. It was staying, going in, staying, coming out, shooting. Like, literally, I used the term dogs because that was how it was. Literally, we go out and I can't even stress how stressful it was sitting in a bus for literally 45 minutes to get to one particular location. It was hell, literally hell, but like, we got to make this come to life. This is a project you will literally not realistically, it's supposed to take like 7 months to shoot this to some extent if you want to actually do this in like a realistic point of view, right? But like, we did this in less than 2 months tops, kind of. But it was really beautiful to see all this kind of like come to life. The cinematographer Ronald, it was a delight working with Ronald on this project. It's I won't say it's my first time working with Ronald, with him on the cinematography. I've worked with Ronald as an actor quite a lot of times. He is a delight to work with, a delight to direct, because he's literally ready to do anything and everything. He was the guy that fell down, rolled up on the ground. But working with him as a cinematographer was kind of like really beautiful, because he's somebody I got to communicate with without even talking to some extent, because it's like he understands what he's supposed to do, and it's more like we share ideas, and it's like, boom, we have this perfect idea and we are going out to actually make it come to life. So it was really awesome working with Ronald. The gaffer actually lit the scenes well enough. You can see the interior scenes where like literally we shot most of those interior scenes in the same location, but it's not something you get to actually realize. But so everybody was going all in. Richard was making sure everything was literally in place, from costumes to the story. Yeah, sure, we were like shooting the right way. Everything. The guy was literally everywhere to some extent. Lawson was always getting sound somewhere on set, because what he did most for this project was get white sound to some extent, because it was very needed. He realized that there's no much talking happening, but he was always there to get the sound. Raymond, very spectacular and very great acting for this project. Undeniably one of our very best performance for like a film project so far. Ridwan was, even though for some extent he was not with us on set, was always showing support and providing, you know, every single thing we thought we needed for shooting this. Yeah, before we actually, you know, kind of like stressed it, he was like there to provide it for us. He was literally everywhere, even though he was not literally like on set for some days. He also played the character, which is like one of my favorite characters for this project, the the guy on Suits. So everybody was everywhere at the same time. It was it's crazy, man. It's really crazy, but I'm literally happy about how this came out at the end of the day. I hope you've enjoyed, and I hope everything I've actually talked about today on this commentary kind of like gave you an insight or better understanding of the story. Obviously, from my perspective, like I said, I wanted this to be as unrobotic as possible, which is why I'm not using literally big terms. I want you to understand what I see when I watch this. And so, yeah, thank you guys so much for staying tuned. Yeah.